Hello, for the fourth week of Lent, March 9-10, Gospel Luke 15, the Prodigal Son Story. Many people say that this Prodigal Son Story is the greatest short story in the New Testament. Half of a chapter, very short for a short story, and very good. I love it. You know, that's the one, as far as you already know, is the story of the two sons. One was the good one and winds up being the bad one, and the other is the bad one and winds up being the good one. I love it. Maybe it's because I have two brothers. An oldest brother, Paul, whose wife died this past week and had her funeral this Thursday evening. So Paul, and then another older brother, Dick. And these two brothers are mine, in a sense. They don't really fit into the prodigal son story because, you know, neither was wild and had to come back like one, or the other one wasn't just good all the time. So it really doesn't identify. If anything that it might identify might be the third son, Larry. When I was a kid, I had the police at our front door trying to talk to my parents about what was going on in the neighborhood more often than Paul and Dick had put together. So if anybody, but at any rate, I think it's just a great story relative to life. And I think this story, all of us, whether you had brothers or sisters or your parents and so forth, or your religion, it's a very powerful story. And in this story, what hit me the most was the father. Because I looked at the father and I could identify more with these two sons' father, with my father, than these two brothers with my two brothers. And I say that because my father was, I think, a very good, holy, funny, wonderful person. And he led us by living an example. And so, for example, in praying, when my mother was sick for 2 years before she died of cancer, you know, he would go to morning mass, 6:30 in the morning, to pray for help. And he did it in such a way that we started going with him. And so he taught us and developed a Eucharist in our lives just by doing and not saying, why don't you come to mass and pray so your mother gets better or something, you know. But he just did it, and we tagged along, and we learned by his doing. And even Lent now, as far as sacrifice. You know, after high school and going to college, I go into the seminary, and he gives thanks to God for this by giving up drinking beer for 1 year. No beer, 1 year. I think that's amazing. And he drank a lot of beer. And when my sister Nancy went into the convent, guess what he did? He gave up beer for 1 year. I think that's amazing. You know, in Lent, we sort of give up something, or we do this, and we just think we're heroic. Well, to me, I'll never forget that my father, who drank a lot of beer, was able to give up beer for 1 year. And so I identify with this father in the prodigal son story. You know, this father knew how to celebrate. He led people to conversion, apparently. He would celebrate life. He would celebrate people coming home, like my brother Paul did when he came home from the army or whatever. All celebrations, parties, getting together. He certainly identified with that father, at least for me, in that story. So I really believe that this is not only just a great short story, but it is a story that I think is sort of, for me at least, misnamed. I don't think it should be called the Prodigal Son Story. I really think it should be called the Prodigal Father Story. And that takes us to the heart of the story, at least for me. And that is, God the Father is like the Father in this story. He always forgives. He celebrates life. He celebrates when we come back to Him. He loved both. He loved us all. He loved the good one, and He says, look, son, everything I have I'm going to give to you when I die. This place. But He also celebrated when His son, the wild one, comes back. Open arms. Party. Forgiveness. And His attitude, I think, is like God the Father's attitude to you and to me. And that attitude is in that one last part of the story reads, but now, talking to the son that was complaining, but now we must celebrate and rejoice, because your brother was dead and has come back to life again. He was lost and has been found. Yeah, that's our Heavenly Father. That's why I love to think about my earthly father, because my earthly father and the Father in this reading reminds me about my Heavenly Father. Take this and, you might have a brother or sister. It applies to brothers and sisters, not just sons. You have a father, and it applies not just to your father, it can apply exactly to your mother. And maybe one of these really helps you to identify. I just think it's the greatest short story in the New Testament. Have a good day.